So, what are ghosts? Are they human beings who have died? Lots of times you'll see ghosts are unhappy entities, and we're told that it's a person who has died in some kind of conflict or some kind of crisis, and so the soul has unfinished business, and so it stays around. What you've been taught, that ghosts are the souls of the departed who have unfinished business, is not entirely accurate. And in order for us to understand how this works, we have to look at the map of human beings, how human beings are created, what they're made of, and then we'll have a better idea of what ghosts really are. So let's talk about that. The human being is made up of not one spiritual source. It's made up of three. So in essence, you're made up of three different souls. And I know that could sound really strange, but you've got your soul, your eternal soul, and that's who I'm communicating with now. This is the part of you that looks at life, that is here to live life, to make choices, to experience life, to learn and to grow. This is the eternal human soul, and it resides here in the heart center. Now, the soul is guided by the higher self. Now, the higher self lives up here, what we call the third eye, and the higher self is a being that gets information from the higher realms, and its job is to guide the human being. And so it is through the higher self that we receive knowledge and wisdom and information and guidance from the heavenly realms, and then this information is given to the third part of us, which is our lower self. And I'm putting my hand here on my navel center. The navel center is where the lower self resides. This is where the ghosts come from. Ghosts aren't souls, they're not higher selves, they are the lower self. And so let me explain to you how it is that we get this combination of three souls into one body. The lower self is similar to an animal. It has, if you've ever had a pet, like a dog, you train your dog is there to serve you. But if you have a very intelligent dog and you don't train it well, or you don't give it good boundaries, you don't feed it and take care of it, it goes crazy. It'll take over the household. Same thing like as a child. If you don't give your child good boundaries, it'll take over the whole household and it'll cause all kinds of chaos. The lower self is like that. The lower self is the repository of the subconscious mind and the unconscious mind, and it's also where we access all of our karmic issues, unresolved issues from past lives. We get this from our lower self. So now let me shift gears a little bit and tell you what happens to the human being when we physically die. When we physically die, what happens is these three selves go their own separate ways. Now, they may come back together, sometimes not. But the soul, what we identify with, the part of you that I'm talking to right now, that is this eternal soul, that doesn't stay here on earth. And it doesn't matter what kind of life you live, whether you die tragically or whether you experience all of your, get all of your goals met or satisfy all of your needs and desires. The soul moves, and it goes either to the underworld, where it reviews all of its lessons and then it gets itself ready to come back into bodily form, or it goes to the higher realms where it will meet with the guides and the masters, and maybe if you've passed all of your karmic tests over many lifetimes, you'll move on to the next lifetime, but more often than not we end up coming back. But that's where the soul goes. The soul leaves the body and goes to one of these two places to review what it's learned and to digest that, and then make some decisions about what it wants to do next. The higher self also, it takes off and it goes to where higher selves go, which I believe is connected to the elves, the ascended masters of the human race. And I believe that that's what the higher self is. The higher self is an elf in training, an ascended master in training. It's here, it descends and lives here in our higher centers in order to guide us, but it doesn't force itself on us. And we have to have communication of the three selves going correctly if we want to live well. One of the main reasons why people's lives fall apart, and one of the main reasons why ghosts are created, is because that while the person is living in their life, they're not communicating with all three of the selves. And here's how it works. You've probably heard me talk about this if you've looked at my other videos. The soul, the eternal self, gets its information from higher sources, but it works like this. The higher self is directly connected to the ascended masters, to your guides. And it knows what your karma is, it knows what your destiny is, and so it's ready to help you. And so when we meditate or when we pray, the higher self is receiving information and guidance from the heavenly realms. It gives this information to the lower self. The lower self acts like your servant if we're in communication with it, and if we have its boundaries in place and we keep it happy, which is in service to the soul, then it comes to us like a messenger and says, here's the messages, you know. But these messages come in feelings, they come in visions, they come in all kinds of different ways. But this is coming directly from the lower self, who interprets what's coming from the higher self. And then the soul, which sits in the control center of the person, which is in the heart, makes decisions. And that's where we make decisions in our lives. And those decisions then will either cancel out old karma or create new karma, or set us on our right path, or send us down an alternate path. You know, we live in this infinitely diverse timeline. We can choose the different timelines that we want to be on based on the choices that we make. So let's say a person dies, and this person, maybe their communication with their three selves isn't so great, and you've got this lower self, which is like the hard drive of the computer. It's been imprinted through a lifetime of desires. And if somebody is wrapped up in the illusion of this material world and lusts after greed, money, power, appreciation, you know, the things that really don't matter, if this person is attached to that and dies unfulfilled with those desires, the higher self goes off to its place, the soul goes off to its place, and the lower self is stuck down here. And so that's what we run into. And this is why ghosts don't know what the year is. They're stuck in whatever year that person died in. This is why they're constantly doing the same tasks over and over again. They're jumping off the cliff again. They're going after their partner. They're trying to find the hidden treasure. Whatever it is that they were obsessed with when they died, they're still doing it. Now, it's not the soul of the person, but it is the person's human identity. So this is more to understand. My name is Michael William Denny. That's my human identity, and people call me by that name. This is, you know, how I interface with the world. But when I die, my soul is not going to hold on to that name. You know, my soul will take on another name and another identity when it goes into, you know, wherever it's going to next. If I have the privilege of coming back again as a human being, I'll take on another human name. If I move on to another realm, I'll take on some other name. Who knows what can happen. But when I die, I'm going to stop being Michael William Denny. But my lower self, that's who Michael William Denny is. That's my identity. That's my ego. That's all of my emotions. That's all of my desires. That's all of my obsessions. That's all of, you know, all of the things that we connect to with life. And this is why it's so important that we live a spiritual life, because we need to work through all of those things. So the lower self is kind of like, it processes all of these things. And if we don't have a connection with all of our three selves, our lower self gets filled with all this junk and it can't process it. And it's like, you know, the hard drive, your hard drive crashes. This is why having a clean lower self and a connection with the other three selves is so important, because otherwise you can be physically ill, you can be mentally ill, you know, all this kind of stuff. And so on a final note, we have a responsibility to the other two souls that are living with us. The soul here commands what happens. This is where all of the commands come from. And the other two souls act like servants. The upper servant is like the wise counselor or the guide that will tell you what you need to do, and you can choose to listen to it or not. You know, if we run into real danger, sometimes we'll see an angel or something will happen, and the higher self will sometimes break in there and say, hey, listen, this is really important for you to know, but we still have a choice. The lower self is completely dependent upon the choices that the soul makes. And so, you owe it to your lower self to be able to work through that, because that lower self is trying to help you. It's incredibly powerful, the lower self. This is why ghosts have the power to move things and make things happen, because they have tremendous amounts of power. This is why emotions are so powerful. We could get into it as a very deep subject. So that's what souls are. Souls are the lower self of the individual, their ego, all of their attachments and desires and unfulfilled desires. And when we die not having fulfilled what it is that we want, all of that programmed intention is stuck in there. And it roams around the earth trying to fulfill all of the things that you didn't work through in life until it finally tires itself out, which can take hundreds of years. And then hundreds of years later, it finally releases all of it, goes back into the earth, and it gets to come back as a lower self. So in my next video, I'm going to be talking about what the three selves do, how they connect to each other, and where they're headed. Because, we have an evolution, so do the other two souls that we have connected to us. So that's it for now. Listen, if you like this series, if you like this channel, please subscribe and like. Go ahead and comment. And of course, take a look at all the other things that I have available to you on the Thunder Shamanism website. If you want to, you can contribute to the channel. I think the little icon is right here. That will help me to continue to make these kinds of videos on a regular basis. And so it is my intention to create even more videos, really ramp up this channel. So that's it for now. See you next time.